living full-time on a cruise ship. It sounds like the ultimate dream. No bills, no cooking, no shorties. Waking up to turquoise waters one week, ancient Mediterranean harbors the next. Your neighbors, friendly people on permanent vacation. Your home, a floating palace of entertainment, pools, and endless buffets. That's the fantasy. But here's the truth. Once you peel back the glossy brochures and picture-perfect Instagram posts, a very different story emerges, a darker story. And it's a side of cruise ship living that most people never get to see unless they actually try it. I've spent years exploring this world, speaking with people who've lived at sea for months and even years, learning from crew members and testing myself. And what I've discovered might surprise you. While the dream is real, so are the sacrifices. In this video, I'm going to reveal the dark side of living on a cruise ship. Each piece of the story builds on the last, and by the end, you'll see the complete picture, the real cost, the hidden challenges, and the truth behind what it's actually like to call a cruise ship your home. Number 1. The illusion of endless luxury. Let's start with the first thing that draws people in. The luxury factor. Cruise lines know exactly what they're selling. Endless indulgence. Think about it. Gourmet dinners every night, Broadway-style entertainment, live music in every lounge, infinity pools overlooking the ocean, a spa just an elevator ride away. The idea is that you'll never be bored, never go hungry, and never have to lift a finger. But here's where reality kicks in. When you live on a cruise ship long-term, that luxury quickly turns into routine. That lobster tail on night 1, magical. By night 50, it feels like a reheated leftover. The comedy show that had you crying with laughter the first week. By the third rotation, you can mouth the punchlines before the comedian delivers them. And the buffets. Let's just say after 3 straight months, you'll start dreaming about cooking your own simple scrambled eggs at home because the novelty wears off and the sameness creeps in. One long-term resident told me, "People think I'm living like a king. In reality, it's like living in a resort that never changes. The scenery outside changes, but inside it's the same people, the same shows, the same menus. It stops feeling luxurious. It starts feeling repetitive. And that's the first crack in the fantasy. The ship is designed for short-term excitement, not permanent living." Number 2, the financial trap nobody talks about. Now let's talk about money. One of the biggest selling points of cruise ship living is the idea that it's cheaper than a mortgage. And on paper, it looks convincing. For example, you can sometimes book repositioning cruises or long-term packages for around $100 a night. That's about $3,000 a month. Now, you compare that to rent in cities like New York, London, or Sydney, and it looks like a bargain. Lodging, food, entertainment, travel, all rode into one price. But here's the catch. Cruise ships are floating revenue machines. Every single aspect of life on board is designed to encourage you to spend more. Drink packages, shore excursions, specialty restaurants, spa treatments, casino nights, gift shops, Wi-Fi packages, laundry fees, daily gratuities. The list is endless. And unlike on land, you can't just opt out. Want internet to check your email? That'll be $20 to $30 a day. Want to wash your clothes? $5 a shirt. Even basics like bottled water aren't always free. I've spoken with people who went into cruise living thinking they'd spend $3,000 a month and ended up doubling it once all the extras were factored in. $6,000 to $7,000 a month just to maintain their lifestyle. That's more expensive than many luxury apartments on land. And here's the psychological trick. On a ship, you don't feel like you're spending money. It's all done on your cruise card. No cash changing hands. By the time you check out or get your monthly statement, the total can hit you like a tidal wave. So, the cheap luxury lifestyle often turns out to be a financial trap. A subtle one, but a very real one. Number 3, the cabin reality. When people imagine living at sea, they picture themselves in a suite with a balcony overlooking endless blue water. They imagine sipping morning coffee while dolphins swim past. The reality for most long-term residents, interior cabins. Why? Because balcony cabins are far too expensive to sustain month after month. So unless you're independently wealthy, you'll likely be tucked away in a 150-foot box with no windows. Now, let's put that into perspective. A typical American bedroom is around 200 square feet, and that's just the bedroom. Imagine fitting your entire life, your bed, your clothes, your desk, your bathroom, all into that space. Then remove the windows. Then add paper-thin walls so you can hear your neighbor's late-night TV or snoring. That's your new home. Some people adapt. They decorate. They bring little comforts from home. They make it cozy. But for others, the claustrophobia becomes unbearable. One couple I spoke to lasted 6 months before bailing. They said it was like living in a closet that rocked back and forth. And here's the other issue. Storage. Cruise cabins aren't built for permanent living. Closets are tiny, drawers are few, and space is minimal. You'll be forced to live like a minimalist, whether you want to or not. Forget about hobbies that require equipment or wardrobes beyond the basics. Your life shrinks down to what you can fit in a few suitcases. It sounds romantic until you try it. Then you realize the cabin isn't your sanctuary, it's your cage. Number 4, the psychological toll of isolation. This brings us to perhaps the most surprising challenge, the mental side, that on paper, you're surrounded by thousands of people, but in practice, living long-term on a cruise ship can feel incredibly isolating. Think about it that you're cut off from normal life. No popping into your favorite coffee shop, no meeting friends for dinner, no family get-togethers. Your entire social world becomes whoever happens to be on board that week. And remember, 95% of them will be gone by the end of the cruise. That constant turnover makes it hard to build real relationships. You might meet a couple you click with, shared dinners, go on excursions together, and then they disembark, never to be seen again. Multiply that cycle over and over, and eventually it feels like you're living in a revolving door of temporary connections. And it's not just social. The ship itself can start to feel like a bubble. The same hallways, the same dining rooms, the same routines. Your world shrinks to a floating hotel. For vacationers, that's fun. For permanent residents, it can start to feel claustrophobic in more than just the physical sense. Psychologists call this the gilded cage effect. From the outside, it looks like luxury, but from the inside, it feels like confinement. One retiree described it perfectly. It's like Groundhog Day, except the scenery outside the window changes. Inside, it's the same show, the same buffet, the same walls. After a while, I stopped feeling excited and started feeling trapped. That's the hidden toll. The part that no cruise brochure will ever mention. Number 5, health risks hidden below deck. One of the most underestimated parts of cruise ship living is your health. Most people associate cruising with a good life, gourmet dining, tropical sunshine, and endless relaxation. But if you're living on a cruise ship long-term, you're putting your body into an environment that's actually pretty challenging to sustain. Let's start with the obvious: disease exposure. Cruise ships are constantly bringing thousands of people from all over the world together in a confined space. Every week, a new batch of passengers boards, each carrying whatever cold, flu, or stomach bug is circulating back home. On land, you can avoid crowds if you're sick. But on a ship, you're sharing buffets, elevators, and air systems. Norovirus, the flu, even COVID. These things spread fast. If you're living on board permanently, your exposure is nonstop. And while ships do have medical centers, they're not designed for long-term care. They're great for patching up twisted ankles or prescribing antibiotics for a throat infection. But if you have a serious condition, a stroke, a heart attack, even a complicated allergic reaction, you'll likely need to be evacuated. And that's expensive. A medical evacuation from a ship can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And if your insurance doesn't cover it, you're paying out of pocket. Then there's the less obvious health risk: lifestyle decline. It's almost a cliche. Cruisers come home heavier than when they left. Buffets loaded with fried food, dessert bars, unlimited cocktails, and late-night pizza become your daily normal. Yes, there are healthier options, but let's be honest, most people struggle with moderation when temptation is everywhere. The gyms on board help, but they're often smaller than hotel gyms, crowded during peak hours, and not always equipped for serious training. If you're used to a fully equipped fitness center, you'll feel limited. Plus, the rocking of the ship can make certain exercises downright awkward. Several long-term residents I spoke with said they gained 20 to 30 pounds within their first year at sea. Not because they didn't care, but because the environment simply wasn't built for sustainable fitness. Add in constant cocktails, rich dinners, and a lack of consistent routines, and it's a recipe for health decline. So, while the brochures promise a healthy, stress-free lifestyle, the reality is that living on a cruise ship can quietly chip away at your well-being both physically and mentally. Number 6, the crew-passenger divide. T first glance. Life on a cruise ship looks like one big family. Passengers laughing with crew, bartenders remembering your name, waiters pulling chairs for you. It feels warm, personal, and even intimate. But the truth is, there's a deep divide between passengers and crew that becomes very apparent if you're living on board long term. Here's why. Crew members live a completely different life from passengers. They're working 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. They sleep in tiny shared cabins below deck, often without windows. Their dining halls serve basic mass-prepared meals, and their social spaces are far more limited than the glitzy passenger lounges. When you stay on board month after month, you start to notice these contrasts more clearly. You might get friendly with a bartender or a room steward and think you're part of their world, but you're not. There are strict rules about how crew can interact with passengers. Friendships are limited, relationships are often forbidden, and there's always a professional line that cannot be crossed. That leaves long-term residents in a strange limbo. You're no longer just another tourist, but you'll never really be part of the cruise community either, and that can feel lonely. Number 7, the constant transience. This brings us to another huge hidden challenge, the revolving door of community. On land, even if you move around a lot, there's usually some stability in your social life. You have regular friends, familiar neighbors, coworkers, or at least a barista who remembers your coffee order. On a cruise ship, everyone comes and goes. Every week, thousands of passengers disembark and a brand new set arrives. If you're living long-term, you'll watch people come into your life, share dinners, laugh at shows, maybe even bond over excursions, and then vanish the next Saturday when a ship docks. At first, this is exciting. It feels like speed dating life. Endless new people, constant variety, but over time, it becomes exhausting. You start to realize that everyone else is having a once-in-a-lifetime vacation while you're stuck in an endless cycle of introductions and goodbyes. Building deep, long-lasting friendships is nearly impossible. The only other constants are the handful of fellow long-term residents who are often much older retirees with different priorities. If you're younger or have different interests, this disconnect can be start point. One woman described it to me like this. It's like being the kid who has to stay after school every day while everyone else gets to go home. You make friends during class, but you're always the one left behind. Over time, that revolving door can leave you feeling ruthless. You have no home base, no real anchor, and for most people, that's emotionally draining in ways they never expected. Number 8, the legal and logistical maze. Now, let's shift gears to something less emotional, but equally stressful logistics. When you're a regular passenger, you don't think about this stuff. You board with your passport, enjoy your vacation, and disembark without worry. But when you're living on a cruise ship, you're suddenly in a legal no man's land. Take taxes, for example. If you're out at sea for 10 months of the year, where do you file? Do you remain a tax resident of your home country? Do you qualify for exemptions as an expat? Different countries have different rules, and it gets complicated fast. And then there's healthcare. Most standard insurance policies don't cover long-term living at sea. What happens if you need prescription refills? Some ships allow limited arrangements, but often you'll need to plan port stops carefully to pick up medications. Miss the port? You might miss your meds. Visas are another hurdle. Cruise itineraries visit multiple countries, and while the cruise line handles most port entries for passengers, long-term stays can raise red flags. Some residents have been denied boarding because of expired visas or passport issues they didn't realize applied. And let's not forget simple logistics like banking, voting, or even receiving mail. You're at sea. There's no mailbox outside your door. Some people set up mail forwarding services, and others rely on family back home, but it's never seamless. The bottom line, cruise ship living isn't just about paying for a cabin and showing up. It's a constant juggling act of paperwork, laws, and loopholes. And most cruise lines won't help you navigate it. Their job is to sell cabins, not manage your life. Number 9, the slow fade of adventure point. One of the biggest draws of cruise living is the idea of waking up somewhere new every few days. Tropical beaches, Mediterranean cities, Alaskan forts. It sounds like endless adventure, and at first it feels exactly like that. But novelty has a shelf life. After months, ports that once felt magical start blending together. Caribbean islands can begin to look the same. Rows of souvenir shops, duty-free jewelry stores, crowded beaches. Even historic European cities lose some sparkle when you're rushing through them on a schedule, knowing you'll be back again in 2 weeks. Instead of exploration, it begins to feel like repetition. Travel turns into routine, and the very thing that drew you in, the thrill of discovery, starts to fade into background noise. Number 10, the fragile safety net. One thing most people forget is that cruise ships aren't designed to be permanent homes. They're vacation vessels, and that means when something goes wrong, you don't have the same safety net you'd have on land. Mechanical failures can shut down whole sections of the ship. Plumbing problems can leave decks without working bathrooms. Storms or hurricanes can reroute entire itineraries overnight. And in rare but very real cases, fires, power outages, or viral outbreaks, life on board can change in an instant. For a week-long vacay, sir, it's an inconvenience. You get a refund, you go home, life goes on. But if you're living on board, it isn't just a trip gone wrong. It's your home suddenly unstable. You don't have a house or apartment to fall back on. Your entire world is tied to this one vessel. And when it breaks, your lifestyle breaks with it. That fragility creates a constant low-level anxiety. You may not notice it every day, but deep down, unlike on land, you can't just step outside to escape a blackout, a flood, or a neighborhood emergency. That you're at sea, and your fate is tied to the ship itself. Number 11, the silent burnout. Put everything together. The financial drain, the cabin confinement, the health challenges, the endless goodbyes, the fading sense of adventure, and you get to the ultimate cost of cruise living, burnout. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, you feel free. You're breaking routines, meeting people, seeing new places. Then, little by little, the cracks start to show. You stop looking forward to dinner because it's the same menus again. You skip the evening show because you've already seen it twice. You stop bothering with certain ports because you've been there 10 times before. The excitement fades, replaced by fatigue. And the most dangerous part, you don't notice it happening. Burnout at sea is slow, creeping, and subtle. One day you just wake up and realize the dream feels like a grind. For some, that's the breaking point. They leave the lifestyle behind and crave normally, routine, stability, even the mundane chores they once wanted to escape. For others, they adapt, but their living the dream becomes more about tolerating the downsides than enjoying the upsides. This is why so few people actually sustain cruise living long-term. Not because it's impossible, but because most discover that what looks like freedom eventually feels like repetition. And the burnout is real. So when you look at the full picture, the dark side of cruise ship living becomes clear. The luxury fades into routine. The costs creep higher than you'd ever expect. The cabins feel small. The community feels temporary. And eventually burnout sets in. But it's not all negative. There are people who thrive in this lifestyle, who love waking up to new horizons, who embrace the simplicity of not worrying about bills or chores, and who find joy in seeing the world from their floating home. That's why my recommendation is this. If you've ever dreamed of living on a cruise ship, try it first. Book a longer voyage, 30, 60, maybe even 90 days, and get a taste before you commit. Whether it's your first cruise or your 15th, I'd love to hear from you. What's the craziest, funniest, or most surprising thing you've ever experienced on a cruise? Share it in the comments. I always enjoy reading your stories. And if you're ready to dive even deeper, check out the video on screen now. It'll take you further behind the scenes of cruising and show you things most passengers never find out. Your voyage is just beginning.